5 extraction shooters that will blow up in 2024. We've been missing some of the extraction shooter hype that we got back when DMZ first came out. I played a lot of that.
Since we've had a
Let's see what he's got to say on it.
Extraction shooter that isn't Escape from Tarkov. Call of Duty's DMZ was cut off from content. Battlefield
still
Hazard
people
Zone
are
was
grinding
dead
that.
on arrival,
That was
and the
so
cycle
dead.
was straight up shut down.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm not the only one looking for that next
game was
big
good too.
extraction
Cycle was
shooter
good.
that doesn't require years of experience to play. Luckily, I've been watching and researching the extraction genre news, and I'm finally excited to look at 5 extraction shooters that are actually
Some of you guys asked me about Delta.
Year. I'm going to try and start with what seems to be releasing the soonest and what we know the most about, and why I'm excited or concerned about each of them. Of course, make sure to subscribe if you want news and gameplay.
Yeah,
of
definitely
these
check out
games,
StoneMountain, guys.
and let me know your thoughts about whether
Big
you
extraction
think they'll
guy,
succeed.
sniper guy, Warzone, Battle
the
Royale.
extraction shooter releasing the soonest is going to be Gray Zone Warfare.
This is what we
Now,
just watched some
barely
gameplay
knew
on.
anything about the game until early this year, but essentially it's a modern combat extraction shooter based in a Southeast Asian island. 3 factions of private military companies from global superpowers all have bases on the edge of the 42-kilometer squared map. There can be up to 16 players per faction in a server, meaning 48 players maximum, and you can team up with 3 friends to make a 4-man squad. There are significantly more AI than players, and the developers have stated that the experience will be mostly led by PvE more than PvP. The devs have also said that there will be 150 quests available from 6 vendors, which is potentially a ton of content at launch.
Yeah, that's just at launch, but this is also early access launch. The map is also absolutely massive. We only saw the bottom part of it, and the middle seems to be kind of empty or some type of red zone, which we don't know about. This is one I know the most about, but
now what's different about
won't
this
get too
extraction
much
game
detail on
versus
this.
the rest is that the server is essentially a persistent world that you never leave. All the metagame and inventory and quests are performed in first person, live in the game server. When you technically extract, you are picked up by a little bird that takes you back to your faction's home base. And that's where you do all your management and weapon builds. Now, the gameplay is going to be pretty slow and tactical with an almost non-existent UI. Extremely detailed gun mechanics with realistic ballistics and injuries with longer animations for all actions. However, compared to Tarkov, it seems to be slightly less complex in terms of healing and even has a revival system for downed teammates. Now, overall, the visual fidelity of this game is glorious, and it seems to be one of the most graphically demanding games in this list. My biggest concern with this game is that it's going to be rough performance on low-end systems, and also visibility might be an issue in highly detailed areas. They are also going down the hardcore route, meaning teammates will not be marked, and I'm guessing team killing will be pretty rampant. Personally, I would prefer a little bit more accessible UI features like ammo, health, and teammate markers, but that is the path the developers want to take.
This
I'm
is
also
more
a
like
little worried
Tarkov.
that the pace of the game could be too slow for a lot of players coming from fast action games.
Doc fell asleep
but I'm
watching
still
the
very excited to
first
dive
gameplay.
deep into the gameplay with my
He was
friends for some
snoring.
tactical squad play. Gray Zone Warfare will be releasing on the PC platform in early access in the next couple of months. Now, up next, a game that has risen from the dead and will be available on all platforms is Delta Force. This is not just a Battlefield-like game with large-scale infantry and vehicle combat. They're also releasing an extraction game alongside its more casual modes and even a single-player campaign based on the events of Black Hawk Down. They have named the extraction mode Hazard Operations. This game mode features a maximum of 3-man squads that infiltrate an area and attempt to extract loot and complete tasks whilst evading other players and, of course, AI. There is also a single item on the map called the Mandel Brick, which when picked up reveals the squad to all other players on the map that gives the best rewards when extracted. And that certainly sounds familiar to other games we might have played. Allegedly, former DMZ dev...
The weapons case in DMZ, as long as you have a PvP element across it that's incentivized, this is the difference compared to the Gray Zone as well, is they're not really, even the way that I've heard other things mentioned on it, it doesn't seem like they want the PvP as much, but it can happen. You might be able to work together. It might be more like a survival game where you just work with people.
Devs and other extraction devs worked on this
Makes
game.
it more hostile.
So if you liked DMZ, I'm sure there's going to be something in this game for you. Delta Force seems to have gritty, modern environments with remastered maps from the original game in 1998.
I never played the
an in-depth
original.
attachment system for weapon
Any of you guys?
setups and character loadouts.
Is that a hype
There'll be
element to
multiple
this?
ways to extract from around, and of course, some sort of metagame in the menus involving currency and items, but no details on that yet. However, I do have some concerns with the identity of this game. Whilst the trailers seem to mostly convey just modern Battlefield-style, boots-on-the-ground combat, this game is still going down the route of a hero shooter with futuristic abilities like Valorant, or even, dare I say, Battlefield 2042.
Bro, I don't know if you guys saw this, but on X, Twitter, there was a post for Marathon, which is another, I believe it's an extraction-based game that's coming out. They announced that they were doing the same thing. It's going to be more like hero-based, class-based, rather than like building your character yourself, whatever. And the comments absolutely were ripping it apart. People were very, very mad about that.
After the clear disenjoyment of Battlefield fans after the most recent release, replacing classes with operators and abilities,
that's what I was talking about. Yep.
I'm concerned as to why the devs have decided to follow in that path. I'm telling you right now, there's a ton of people who will be immediately turned off from the game once these ultimate style skills.
Yeah, that's what I saw on Twitter,
play.
dude.
The game is
about
also going to be free
Marathon.
to play and across all platforms, including mobile.
That's
which
crazy,
always brings
though.
an
What?
array of issues, namely easier access for cheaters, monetization with potential pay to win, and of course, my favorite, skill-based matchmaking. Hopefully, these issues will be at a minimum, and I'm optimistic that this game could be a potential banger for 2024.
That sounds...
Now, third on my list of extraction shooters is the Division Heartland, and this actually has an announcement date for beta on June 27th.
Wait, is this an
another
extraction
game
shooter?
available across all platforms except mobile, and is also listed as a free-to-play game from a AAA developer.
What?
This is obviously an expansion of the Division universe in a post-apocalyptic world, but this time located entirely in a small town known as Silver Creek.
They already had an extraction shooter within their game of the Dark Zone. This is where you could go in and extract some of the best loot, literally fighting other players, and it was like one of the original real good
now,
takes
if you
at this
remember,
game.
the Division was potentially the birth of PvP extraction shooters with its Dark Zone in the streets of New York, where players fought over rare loot and weapons only available in the Dark Zone and extracted it at hot zones in the map with a huge risk versus reward. Unfortunately, I remember that even just after a week of the Dark Zone going live, the cheaters took over and it was almost impossible to play organically, at least on PC. It was also incredibly buggy, and for me, it was ruined before it even had a chance. This time, they have built a standalone game purely for the extraction mode, and hopefully, this will lead to a more extensive quest and progression system with a lot more depth regarding...
Because the Division is a very different game where you actually... It was more like Destiny or your standard, like, more MMORPG style game where you get individual pieces of gear that have higher rating that then make you actually stronger and better. If you look at like Tarkov, it's kind of an RPG. In fact, that was one of my favorite elements of the game, was going in and just getting loot. And you kind of got like your tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 armor, but it's not as clear which some of the pieces are good and what the trade-offs are. But it kind of still is. It doesn't necessarily have like a level, the same way that you progress a character in Division or Destiny within it, but it does have that element. Or even the guns. Like, you could take a gun, but a lot of times it's the ammo upgrade that's giving you that extra power against another character. So you could go in against like a fully beefed up, juicy character versus another one that's, just got ammo that can't even penetrate your armor because you're literally so beefed up in Tarkov. You're the ultimate Chad.
Player interactions. The Division games have always looked good with decent optimization for all platforms, so performance shouldn't be a big issue.
DMZ, everybody has the same health.
This game will probably be the most casual and accessible game on this list. An almost overwhelming UI, markers everywhere.
Yeah,
and of
yeah,
course,
that's true too.
Forget the bullet sponge enemies.
Yeah, that was always weird
also
with it.
lean into sci-fi style abilities with drones, scanning grenades, and healing auras. I'm also not the biggest fan of third-person shooters with the peeking advantages and cover-to-cover gameplay. But hopefully, this game delivers on a more narrative level, and potentially the highest level of AI with years of development behind them previously. From the trailers, it seems like up to 3-player squads, very easily identifiable friendlies, and enemies with quests and bosses galore. This will be perfect for players who want a much more chilled and accessible experience. I just hope they can keep control of the cheats and bugs that plagued their previous extraction games especially with it being free to play.
I would kind of be worried that like DMZ is already there for majority of these things. They're already doing great with it. They're just not updating it or do anything else with it. This might feel like a step back, and then would we get as much new content as what even like COD, at least COD was delivering updates for DMZ back when it was pretty popular. I did appreciate that. You know, that's one of the reasons that it's still relatively popular, even though they don't do any more updates for it. I think them using the casual aspect, though, of it being cross-play and even free-to-play, and it, you know, tying in Tom Clancy and The Division, will get so many people on board that it would probably have a pretty big launch. The question is, how good would it really play and be?
And then up next on this list is another third-person extraction shooter releasing on most platforms, Ark Raiders. Developed by the same company that brought us the finals, these devs are veterans of the shooter genre, especially those who were
previous
former DICE
Battlefield
devs from the original Battlefield games. Previously, this game was going to be a PvE co-op shooter with no sign of extracts or other players.
PvE co-op shooter. So that's like Helldivers?
But recently, they did a 180 and decided no, this game should compete in the PvP extraction genre, and now it's set to release at some point this year. They were actually planning on releasing it last year, but decided to focus on the finals instead, so hopefully this game has
finals
even
is
more
good,
polish.
dude.
It's clearly set in a distant future on a
plays very well.
abandoned and empty Earth with laser weapons, drones, and sci-fi outfits, and you'll have players fighting together against robots as the AI, and of course other humans as players in PvP. Visually, it already looks stunning, with the environments being quite vast, open landscapes,
that
ruined
looks
cities,
sick.
and old technology littered everywhere. Again, another third-person shooter, but it looks like it's going to be less of a cover shooter than The Division, with way more movement mechanics in its gameplay.
Whoa.
The engagements with the AI seem to be less constant and chaotic, and more like focused engagements with specific fights in places of interest. There doesn't seem to be anything that suggests how you infiltrate and exfil in and out of the map so far, nor do we know the specifics of the metagame and inventory mechanics, but this is definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on for what looks to be a
pretty
beautiful,
good.
highly narrative and engaging PvPvE gameplay.
Yeah.
And then last but not least on this list is an unexpected but welcome addition to the PUBG universe. I already have hundreds of hours in the original PlayerUnknown Battle Royale, and later this year,
I've been going
PUBG
back to
is
this
getting
now.
a full overhaul and being moved over to the Unreal 5 engine.
Yep.
The hype for this game is already building, with players steadily rising over the past few weeks.
I've been back.
But not only will PUBG be getting a facelift, they'll also be focusing on a new extraction game to be released alongside their updated Battle Royale.
Okay, before we get too hyped on this, they also released a Counter-Strike type mode in PUBG, and it was very much like a minimum Counter-Strike. If I'm going to play Counter-Strike, it's still not, I would rather just go play that game. It's free game too. Counter-Strike 2, you know, it's a great game, but they created their own version of it, and it just didn't, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to go play it for this. I think if you really like the game, then this is another cool way to play it. To me, the arcade actually serves more of a purpose for the mode. I'm instantly getting a little nervous that it's going to be a not all the way there
this year
type thing.
The name of the game is currently Project Black Budget.
But this is
we don't know
this
the
is its own
extent of
thing.
how big the extraction mode will
Maybe?
be. But the
Yeah,
updated game will have destruction, terrain deformation, and obviously massively updated graphics.
That is already happened in PUBG, though. They showed a couple clips of this. This is going to be terraforming, so if you like shoot a rocket at the ground, it'll make a foxhole in the ground, and you can use it for cover. I love that. This is one of the reasons that I'm kind of like getting more excited for PUBG again. This is coming this year. But if this is well implemented into a like dedicated game, and there's not really, you know, I say we're looking at a video of 5 different games that are coming out here that are competition, but there's not as much competition in the space of like what's been well executed. Like, okay, Hazard Zone, was that really a good competition for an extraction shooter game? That was really minimal. That was like ultimate bare bones of what you would want from a game. There was so much stuff missing.
Fixing performance with the new engine. I used to be pretty good at PUBG back in the day, but from what I see players do now, My
Yeah,
only
people are
concern with this
crazy.
game is that I'll be absolutely pummeled
Yeah.
by god tier players who already have thousands of hours in the original game. Maybe the gameplay will be different enough to be on a level playing field at launch.
I
but
think it could be
definitely
good,
think this
though.
game is going to be one, if not the most popular game on this list.
Dude.
Especially if it ends up being free to play like its Royale counterpart. I know regardless of all this, me and my friends are going to have a good time playing it once
They're
it
all
releases,
about the gambling
if the
boxes.
predecessor is anything to go by.
Get in the
so
whales.
These are the 5 most prominent extraction shooters that I've seen so far being released in 2024. If you guys have any other extraction games that are releasing this year that I missed, please let me know in the comments so we can all check them out as well. And let me know your thoughts about the games that I mentioned. And of course, subscribe if you want to keep
go
up to
check
date
Start
on
out
news
if
and
you guys
gameplays
haven't yet.
for these games.
I'll link
in
the
near
video here as
future.
well.
Extraction shooters are like the next evolution of Battle Royale games.
I
And
feel
can't
like
be
it
the
is.
only one that is just waiting for the right game to really keep me
Nah,
engaged
we're all
longer than
waiting.
a couple of weeks.
We're all ready.
Thanks for watching. And
We're
I'll
on the
hopefully
edge
see
of
you
our
again
seat.
soon.
We're ready for a new
Cheers.
game, guys. I mean, are we not? Are we not? Everybody's always looking for the latest and greatest. Blow my socks off, dude. Give it a like if you enjoyed. If you have any other cool videos, things you want me to react to, send them over to my Discord, and we'll take a look. Stade's great, though. Make sure you check him out.